So, talking about Noel Gallagher and those high-flying birds of his. Edwin Canestracci here. I'm back and I'm drinking scotch. What do you know? Edwin drinking scotch. Finishing off a bottle of Johnnie Walker Black, as I am known to do from time to time. And I'm also reviewing something Oasis related, which I'm likewise known to do from time to time. And yes, we are talking about Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. That's a mouthful. Come on, no one really says that. We all just say Noel Gallagher. It's his whole career, you know. So why am I going to say Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds all the time? I'm not. I resent that you're making me say that much, Noel. I love you. I think you're an ingenious songwriter. You're great, but I resent you coming up with a fucking solo band name that long. So I'm not saying it out of spite. Yeah, there you go. It's just going to be Noel Gallagher. With all due respect and a little undercurrent of resentment. Noel Gallagher's Council Skies. Council Skies is the name of his latest album. Just dropped last week, although half of this I had already heard before because they released half this album as singles. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So like last year, when I was in an LA crash pad, buddy's place, I did an Oasis Rankorama, which I will leave a link to down below. And I also reviewed in a separate video Liam Gallagher, who just dropped his latest album last year, Come On You Know. I had to review that, and what I did was, because I had done the Oasis Rankorama, I did this whole solo Liam versus solo Noel video, a hybrid discography review of Noel Gallagher and Liam Gallagher post-Oasis, leading up to a review of Come On You Know. Just to give you a little pretext, here's the headline. Right after Oasis, it's the first High Flying Birds albums. Noel was easily winning. He was fucking wiping the floor for Liam, because I was not a huge fan of Liam's first post-Oasis music outing, Beady Eye. I didn't think Beady Eye was that great. It was essentially Oasis without Noel, but Oasis without Noel apparently wasn't that great. So yeah, I was like, hey, Noel's apparently the genius in the band. There you go. Liam's a cool guy. He's a cool guy with a cool voice, but obviously him and these Beady Eye guys can't do it. So I was not a huge fan of the Beady Eye albums, and I especially loved that first High Flying Birds album. That's what it's called. It's called Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds. That's the first Noel Gallagher solo album. Yeah, that's right. I'm just saying Noel Gallagher solo. And that's an amazing album. I still think it's a great album. How does it compare to this album, this new album? Well, you'll just have to wait a few minutes there, buddy. So at first, Noel was winning. Then as the years passed, Liam Gallagher, he dusted himself off. He lifted himself up from this failure, from this creative and commercial failure, and he took it to the fucking mattresses. Yeah, that's right. With 3 in a row, 3 great solo albums. Now, proper Liam Gallagher solo albums, and I love all 3 of those albums, especially the second one is my favorite of the 3, but they're all great. And, Noel, I really liked his third album, Who Built the Moon. It's a really great album. Actually, I love that album. A great ravey, psychedelic rock album with some pop elements here and there. It's a great album. And for a while there, it was my second favorite Noel Gallagher solo album. But I thought, Why Me, Why Not? The second Liam Gallagher solo album, Why Me, Why Not? I thought was better. And that was the corresponding album. So I gave that the edge, and that is my favorite post-Oasis Liam Gallagher outing, Why Me, Why Not? So there you go. So Liam Gallagher was finally besting Noel. He was edging him out. And then there was no contest after that because Noel Gallagher, during the Panorama, he released a bunch of dancey EPs, which for the most part, I was not so into. Yeah, I was not so into. It was kind of like Noel Gallagher was now entering his Beady Eye phase. He was now the one on the bottom, and Liam Gallagher was the one on the top. And solidifying that, Liam Gallagher released his third solo album, Come On You Know, which I didn't love as much as the first 2 albums, and I still don't. But It's a great album, and it showed that Liam Gallagher, that the first two albums were not a flash in the pan. They had this great team of producers and co-songwriters, and he was going to keep bringing it. There's a lot of great songs on that album, and I love it. But here was the question. Was the fact that Liam was bringing it so much to the table now, that he was releasing really great solo albums, and in addition to that, he's like selling out stadiums on his own in England, and everyone loves Liam Gallagher again, and he's getting everyone excited about Oasis, and he's like become the gatekeeper of Oasis's legacy. You know, there was a lot of pressure on Noel. Could Noel Gallagher match Liam? Could he match his brother Liam with a classic great Noel Gallagher album, like his very first solo album? Well, the answer is yes, he did. It's great. I love Council Skies. That's the headline. We'll break it down track by track. We'll break it down. But yeah, I love it. It's great. Do I think it's better than Come On You Know? I'll tell you after I review the album. Yeah, I got to keep some suspense there for you people. In case you were just tuning in to see what I think about shit. Hey man, sometimes it's the details. It's the little nuances in the little cracks of what I say that you should be sticking around for. That's right. So anyway, when I first heard the album last week, my initial reaction was one of mild disappointment. Yes, mild disappointment. I'll tell you why. It was because I'd already heard half the songs from this album. And my two favorite songs on the album were two of the songs I'd already heard. I already heard them. They were already released as singles. So heard that much of an album and you've already heard your favorite songs, it's kind of natural to have that feeling. It's that feeling of like, you know, it's Christmas Day and you already like maybe cheated and you knew what gifts you were going to get. And then you open the gifts and, you know, it's not as exciting as if you didn't know what the gifts were. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. I felt like a little spoiled fucking asshole kid on Christmas that had cheated and already looked at his toys. And I ruined Christmas. I fucking ruined Christmas. The Edwin Canistracci that ruined Christmas. I made this vow, and I'm making it again. Now officially, it's on YouTube. This is an official YouTube vow. So it's official. So I could get like thrown in jail if I don't honor this. I don't want to toss no one's salad. Nothing against it. If that's your thing, if you're into tossing the salad, more power to you. That's great. You do you. But I don't want to do it. I don't want to toss no salad. I'm going to stay true to this fucking vow. Word is bond. If a band or artist I dig releases a new single for an upcoming album, I will listen to the first single because that's like old school. Like they used to release like one single a few months before to kind of get you ready and excited for the album and kind of give you an idea of what the album is going to sound like. Hey, I'm all fine with that. I will listen to that initial first single and I will pre-order the album if it was good, and if it's a band I always buy the fucking album from. But then, once the fucking Apple Music starts downloading shit automatically and people start posting links of all the subsequent singles that they released up to the album's release, I will fight off the temptation. I'm stronger than that temptation. I am. I know I am. I'm going to fight that temptation and just leave that shit in that fucking slowly but surely growing digital album of mine and just not listen to it. I'm not going to listen to it. It's going to be like spoiler alert. I don't want to be spoiled. Don't ruin the end of Succession for me. But I already saw it, so you can't. It was awesome. But I'm not going to spoil the Succession ending for you because I'm not a dickhead. Not like that little kid, Edwin Canistracci, that ruined Christmas for me. Fuck that kid. He's a dickhead. But me, the adult Edwin, he ain't a dickhead. I'm not spoiling you. You don't spoil me. I don't want to hear none of these songs until the fucking album drops. Because I can tell you, God, how awesome would it have been to hear Dead to the World for the first time listening to this album. You know, it would have been like, whoa! It would have fucking blown me away. But like off on its own, you know, I could hear it was a great song, but I just feel like it would have had a lot more power if I heard it for the first time in the context of the album. You know, it's a fucking album. Noel Gallagher, he took the time. He took the time and constructed an album with the songs all sequencing, segueing into each other. And there's orchestras and production and subtle guitar work throughout. And like, you know, he took the time to fucking make an album. It's like what if you directed a movie and then they slowly released half the fucking movie out before you saw it? I don't like it. I'm not down with this trend of slowly releasing half a fucking album before it comes out. So I'm going to fight against it. So anyway, that's my rant, because this album I was hard on when I first heard it as a result. But then after that initial disappointment faded, and I just started listening to it like it was just any Noel Gallagher album, and just start listening to it like an album without any Christmas morning expectations. It just all started to sink in, and I really start to get into this album and its vibe. Ralph Viera, my good friend Ralph Viera, check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. But he did a review of this album just the other night, which I watched, and me and him, we're going to mirror each other on a lot of this. Not exactly, but more or less, we think the same thing about this album. And he said that it's a little too soon to say where he'd rank it along with the other Noel Gallagher albums. I will say right now, it is my second favorite Noel Gallagher album. This is my second favorite. I'm not prepared to say it's better than that amazing debut, the first Noel Gallagher album. To me, that's a perfect album. I love every song on that album. I definitely like every song on this album. I don't know, I might feel differently a week from now. Like every time I've listened to this album, it has grown on me. It's definitely a grower. It's more subtle than the first album, which was kind of subtle in itself, but this is definitely the most mature and subtle Noel Gallagher album yet. Okay, but let's go track for track. Okay, I'm Not Giving Up Tonight. Awesome track, awesome opening track. And thankfully, this was one song I didn't hear before the album came out. Although it could have been a single, it's really catchy. Comes off this nice slow groove. There's a really great vibe to this album. It kind of straddles the borderline between 60s rock and pop, and I would say early 70s. This is something similar to the last Liam Gallagher album. It's a little bit of an early 70s soul vibe, especially with the strings and the production and just kind of the vibe. There's a little bit of a Philadelphia, that early 70s Philly sound. The Spinners, I love the Spinners, that kind of sound. A little bit of that kind of vibe going on. This is like soulful, white dude Manchester soul music. The way it builds up and into the chorus and the strings, Noel's voice sounds amazing. It's a lovely melody, and I love the sentiment. Like, that's the thing. This goes back to the early days. It goes back to the very first Oasis album, like Live Forever, where it's all positive. This album does get very melancholy at times, but ultimately, I still think Noel Gallagher and Liam Gallagher, something the Gallagher brothers have in common, and I think they have a lot in common with these last two albums, which I will talk a bit about at the end. They're both very positive, life-affirming music. It's optimistic. It's like, I'm not going to give up tonight. He's not giving up. He's going to get you. But it's like, I feel like lyrically, it's a romantic song. It's a love song, but like a lot of Noel Gallagher songs, like he's not giving up on this woman. It could be taken metaphorically to mean he's not giving up on you, on music fans, on creating great music and art and these things that still matter and making albums and all that stuff. And he's not just going to roll over and let Liam Gallagher win, He's not giving up. He's still got some fight left in him. And he's still got some songwriting chops. So I take it metaphorically as a mission statement. And it's a great song. I love it. Then we got Pretty Boy. This was, I believe, the first song released from the album, first official single, which I don't think it should have been released as a single. It's a good album track. I like it. I think it's a good second album track. This is a little bit that slicker, poppier kind of side. It has a little bit of that Who Built the Moon kind of psychedelic, ravey vibe with the distorted bass and stuff. And I dig it. It's a good song. Like I said, when I first heard this, I remember thinking, this album might not be too great. It wasn't until I heard the third single that I really was like, oh, fuck, this is going to be a great album. Yeah, this song, I don't know, like to me, I would enjoy this more if this was just a second album track that I never heard before. I would have appreciated the song better because I think it works better in that context. It's a solid album track that for some reason was released as the first single. Then we get to Dead to the World. Woo! God damn, let me have a drink. Amazing song. I say, yeah, my favorite song on the album. Definitely my favorite song on the album. It's a masterpiece. It's a little mini masterpiece. I don't know if I'd call this whole album a masterpiece. I think it's a great album. It's a great album that has a masterpiece on it. And this song is a masterpiece. Dead to the World. It's one of the most beautiful, haunting, atmospheric, and moving songs Noel Gallagher ever wrote. As great as his best work in Oasis, as great as anything on that first debut solo album, it's amazing. It's one of the greatest songs he ever wrote. it just comes on this, with the acoustic guitar and then the strings. I love the strings on this album. I love how they're produced. They have a little bit of a late 60s, early 70s Serge Gainsbourg quality too. It's a little like Philly Soul meets Serge Gainsbourg strings. And this song has a little bit of a French vibe. It's kind of like you can imagine yourself walking through Paris in the wee hours by yourself on cobblestone streets. And there's this ominous but beautiful quality to the night and to the echoes of your shoes against the cobblestones. And it just has that vibe. It's like a living dream. It's like a living dream. It's one of Noel Gallagher's greatest songs. I love it, and it stirs a lot of feelings. I especially also love the subtle transition into the chorus. It's a very subtle but strong chorus, and Noel starts singing in a falsetto, and it's very, very moving. It's a very moving chorus, and this from a guy who wrote many, many moving choruses, and I think it's one of his best vocal performances as well. His singing's great throughout this album. A lot of soulful restraint and power. He's become a really great crooner. Noel Gallagher knows just how to hit certain phrases a certain way, and it just kind of takes you into its warm arms, this song. And it's haunting and beautiful, and I can't talk about Dead to the World forever, so I gotta move on, unfortunately, because I wish I could, because it's that great. Then we got to Open the Door, See What You Find. Great title, Open the Door, comma, See What You Find. Noel Gallagher did not use the dreaded parentheses, which I've noted many times. I do not like when people use parentheses in song titles. I much prefer a comma. Yeah, that's right, use a fucking comma if you gotta use a compound sentence. Open the door, see what you find. Great song, great song. I believe this is one of the songs that Johnny Marr plays on. Let me just check that out. Yep, Johnny Marr plays on this one. Yeah, Johnny Marr plays actually on a couple tracks. For those not in the know, that is the amazing guitarist from the amazing band The Smiths. The Smiths, who, like Oasis, were out of Manchester and were a huge influence on Oasis and Noel. And actually, that's the thing that really struck me about this album. There was always a Smiths influence to Noel's writing and to Oasis, but this album especially, this is like the most Smiths-esque album he ever recorded. Especially if we're talking like mid to late 80s pop year Smiths. Definitely a Strange Ways, Here We Come. I hear a lot of Strange Ways, Here We Come. And that album likewise was like 60s style pop rock with kind of early 70s soul strings and beautiful melodies and harmonies. And that's an album that's really grown on me a lot over the years. That used to be, I used to think it was one of the weaker Smiths albums, but now I actually think it's one of the stronger ones. If you love Council Skies, you should definitely check out Strange Ways, Here We Come. And I would recommend pretty much every Morrissey solo album from the 90s. All his solo albums from the 90s. I think you'd dig it if you dig this shit. Anyway, it's just great lush pop. And yeah, this is one of those songs that sounds like, musically, it sounds kind of like a song from Strange Ways, Here We Come. It's great. It's just great, lush, kind of British style pop rock and uplifting, kind of moving. Maybe Dead to the World was melancholy and wistful and like a song like he was sleeping, having a dream. And Open the Door, See What You Find. It's him waking up, the sun's out, and he's having a little English tea, and he's going to go out, and he's going to make things happen. Noel's going to make things happen. Great song. Then a song I heard before, actually. I don't know if it's the exact same version, because the running time's a little different. Might be a different mix. But this song, another great title, Trying to Find a World That's Been and Gone. Part 1. There is no part 2. So don't expect a part 2. Maybe the next album. Great, beautiful song. Very, short. It's about 3 minutes, but it's a very subtle but lush acoustic number with, again, strings. You hear these strings come in and vaguely psychedelic, but very vaguely. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful ballad, very wistful. And it's kind of like the heart of the album. I think this is a metaphor for Oasis and maybe even what Liam's doing and what everyone's kind of doing with all their Oasis fandom. Like everyone wants Oasis to get back together. And he's saying like, we're trying to find this world that's been and gone. It's gone. Like we'll never really recapture the 90s again. And in the same way, like me and Liam will never really capture what like the Beatles did in the 60s. There was an amazing cultural, creative renaissance in the 20th century that will never be replicated. At least this is kind of what I'm reading into the song. Like it's only a few lyrics, but this lyric just makes me think that it's almost a melancholy lament for this past that you can never reclaim. Very Fitzgerald-esque. very Great Gatsby-esque. We'll never reclaim it. But there's beauty in that too. There's embracing the beauty of this thing you'll never be able to reclaim again, but you might have a hint of it with a certain song or a certain memory or a certain photograph. Like something will bring it back to you and you'll have it for this fleeting moment. Again, just like that amazing last paragraph in The Great Gatsby. Borne back ceaselessly into the past. Gatsby's green light is Noel's Council Skies blue. Then it goes into another great song, which was a single, Easy Now. Easy Now. Now, this is a song I think should have been the lead-off single. Then they should have just waited. In my opinion, in the ideal universe that Edwin makes up in his mind, Easy Now is released as a single like 6 months before the album. That's it. And then maybe the title track is released as a second single the week this album drops. That's how I think they should have done it. That would have been perfect in my opinion. Anyway, Easy Now is great. Yeah, I would pick this as the lead-off single because it's really catchy, it's really melodic, and it sounds a lot like Oasis. Actually, the last song sounded a lot like Oasis too. This middle section, Trying to Find a World That's Been and Gone, and Easy Now is the most Oasis-y sounding section of this album. And it's great. Easy Now is just a great Britpop song. It kind of straddles that line like a lot of great melodic Oasis songs where it's a little bit like a ballad, but it's also kind of a rock and roll song. Like there's a great guitar solo in it and a great rising chorus. And it's a song I didn't fully appreciate the first time I heard it as a single, but in the context of the album and the more times I've been listening to it, I'm like, man, this is a really, really amazing song. In fact, I'd say it's probably my third favorite song on the album. It's really, really great. It stacks right up there against any Oasis classic. I love Easy Now. Then we get to Council Skies, the title track. Amazing song. Loved it as a single. Love it on the album. I would say this is easily my second favorite track on the album. This is my second favorite track. It's got kind of a bossa nova beat. Got kind of this bossa nova groove. Kind of loungy, kind of slick and kind of international, kind of jet setting. But at the same time, very organic sounding, amazing production. The melodies, got these melodies that Noel comes up with. He's just got an ear. He's got one of these ears like Paul McCartney or Brian Wilson. He's got one of these ears where it's just like pure melody. Like McCartney, there's this effortless quality to Noel Gallagher's songwriting and his command of melody. I just really love this song. It's really upbeat, makes you feel good. This whole album almost like, it's like a gray day. It's like a hazy, gray English day, but there's cracks of sun coming through that brighten things up. And that's what this album feels like. I love Council Skies. Also, if you're wondering what Council Skies means, I looked this up. Okay, there's this artist, this British artist that Noel Gallagher is friends with and digs named Pete McGee. He did a book called Council Skies of his various paintings and artwork. Noel dug it, and there's a specific color blue that's on the book jacket. And whenever Noel Gallagher paints something, or he said that he's seen that color blue, he thinks of it as Council Skies blue. So essentially, he's like talking about the blues. Like this is the blues, even though this doesn't sound like the blues, but in the sense of the color blue. And it's very impressionistic because blues associated with like the blues and sadness, Picasso's blue period. But at the same time, it's also blue skies, it's blue oceans, it's Johnnie Walker Blue Label, it's a blue royal ribbon, a royal color, it's a kingly color. So, blue means a lot of different things. And to me, the way that he sees impressionistic colors from this artist friend of his, he's doing that with music. He uses sounds, his guitar sounds and the various tones and the undercurrent of strings throughout this album. It's impressionistic rock and roll music. Amazing stuff. How could you listen to Council Skies and not feel good? I feel sorry for you if your soul is not filled with goodness when you're hearing this song. Beautiful. Love it. Then it's funny, with the next two tracks, I'm kind of the reverse of what my friend Ralph Viera said. Me and Ralph were pretty much mirroring each other up until this point. And we're still kind of mirroring each other, but it's just like in reverse. Because this next track, There She Blows, great title. I like it. I think it's a good song. But if I had to pick my least favorite, it would be this song. It's my least favorite. I like it. I think it's a good song. It's a good album track. It's a good rocker. It's kind of a thumping rocker. It sounds a little like something that could have been in a late Oasis album. and I like the lyrics, and it's got a cool groove to it. But one of these songs has to be my least favorite, right? So it's this one. But the next track, I love the next track. Love is a Rich Man. Ralph, it was the opposite. So we flipped on that one. Love is a Rich Man. Now, I love this song. In fact, it's very weird because this is the song. If I had picked a song that I thought Johnny Marr from the Smiths played on, it would have been this one. And then I looked it up and it's like, no, he didn't play on this one. That's weird because this is like the most Smith-sounding song on the album. That guitar hook sounds very Johnny Marr-ish, but that rockabilly thing that Johnny Marr likes to throw into the mix. I love it. Nice driving guitar riff. I love the lyrics. I love the vibe. It's a rocking song, but also very spirited, uplifting, and romantic, like a lot of these Noel Gallagher songs. Love is a Rich Man. I would say it's probably my fourth favorite song on the album. I love it. It's a great song. And I think the sequencing's great throughout this album. Like, this is a good second to last track. And then we have Think of a Number. Another great title, great lyrics throughout this album. This song was a little bit of a grower. I wasn't thrilled with it at first because I thought it sounded a little too much like The Cure's love song. It's not, especially in the verses, like it sounds a lot like The Cure's love song. And I like that song, and I love Disintegration. But I just thought it sounded a little too much. Like it sounded almost like he was biting Robert Smith's shit there a little bit. Which is interesting because Robert Smith did a remix. He did a remix of, not this song, another one, Pretty Boy. Pretty Boy sounds a little Cure-ish as well. It sounds a little Cure-ish, early New Order-ish a little bit. But this one really sounds a lot like Disintegration era Cure, especially in the verses. When it gets into the chorus, it starts sounding more just like Noel Gallagher, but those verses sound very Cure-esque. So I don't know. So Noel Gallagher, is he listening to a lot of Smiths and The Cure these days? After I got past the shock that it sounded so much like The Cure's love song, I grew to really like this song. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite songs, but I think it's a good ending track. And I dig it. It's got a cool, vibe and groove. The guitar work as throughout this whole album is great. Love the production. In fact, I think this probably is, from a production standpoint, and I do love the production on all his Flying High Bird solo albums, but I think this is my favorite production. I still don't know if song by song it's better than the first one, although I might think that a few weeks from now, or maybe even a few days. Maybe even after I'm done this video, who knows? But I could definitely say it's my favorite production. It's great. I think it's the best production he's been involved in since Be Here Now. Yeah, and we know how much I love Be Here Now. Now, this is not the cokey fucking rave up that album is, and that production is, but this is a great, subtle, atmospheric, impressionistic production that I just think is superb. Superb. That's a good adjective for this album. I don't have the deluxe edition. I do have one that has a bonus track. My edition has the We're Gonna Get There in the End. It's a good track. It's a good track. That kind of northern soul kind of vibe, that mix of like British style rock and roll and soul music. And I dig it. I like the production. I like the horns. It's got a nice melody. But I can hear why it didn't make the cut. Like, even though There She Blows is my least favorite song on the proper album, I still think it's better than We're Gonna Get There in the End. So again, Noel Gallagher made the right call there. It's a good extra track, I'll leave it on the album because it's not bad, a bonus track. I dig it. And overall, as you can tell, I love this album. It's subtle, it's a grower, but once it sinks in there, it sinks in. Now you're wondering, though, how do I stack it against Liam Gallagher's last album, Come On You Know? This is the proper conclusion to that video, the Liam versus Noel video, because I was putting EPs up against the last Liam Gallagher album. But now we got a proper, official Noel album to go against Come On You Know. It's close. I love both these albums. I think they're very close in quality. They have a similar quality. Actually, these are the two albums that Noel and Liam have released since the end of Oasis that have been the closest in terms of both quality and style. It's interesting, too, because, Liam is working with other songwriters and collaborators and, different producers, but somehow he has created a kind of cohesive vision, especially that last album. It's very eclectic, but at the same time, it did all work. There was a vision, an overriding vision. And I feel like the overriding vision is not dissimilar to Noel's. Now, obviously, that came out first, so to a degree, Noel could have been influenced by it. But they are brothers. They both come from Manchester. They both love a lot of the same shit. They love the Beatles, the Stones, the Smiths, the Stone Roses. They love a lot of the same shit. And I feel like as they're both more comfortable in their own solo careers, they're kind of just naturally getting closer to each other. All right, see where I might be leading here. If I'm really being honest, it's a tie. That album's a little bit longer, all right, and it's a little busier production-wise, whereas this is a little more subtle and it's a little tighter. So I might give Council Skies a slight edge. I might give it a slight edge if I had to choose. But it's not like a resounding win. It's not like Liam was winning a couple years ago or Noel was winning, right after Oasis broke up. It's not like a resounding win. It's not like a knockout. It's more like a decision win. But if I had to pick, I'll give it to Noel. But Noel and Liam are very close. Come On You Know and Council Skies are very close in quality, and they have a lot of similarities. Again, they both got a lot of strings and that kind of subtle psychedelia that's running throughout both albums. They both have a soul influence, a little bit of a 70s soul influence. They both got a touch of gospel, a little touch of gospel singers in the background. They both meditate on the past and the present, but they're ultimately both uplifting albums. So, I really feel that Liam and Noel are kind of in the same headspace. And I know they're still fighting, they're still trading little barbs here and there, but it sounds like these guys have creatively gotten to a place where they're like ready to make an album together. That's all I'm saying. In fact, I did this fun thing on Spotify. I'm going to leave a link to it below, along with the other Oasis-related videos. But I created a super double album called Oasis Come On Council Skies, in which I kind of imagined if you took the best songs from both these two albums and put them together in a way that was kind of like an Oasis album. I gotta tell you, I was listening to it and it really flowed. It flowed really well. It sounded like these are two halves of a double album. It sounds like that. It really does. In the very early 70s, John Lennon and Paul McCartney were kind of talking to each other through their albums. Ram was a response to Plastic Ono Band. Imagine was a response to Ram. Wildlife was a response to Imagine, and so forth. Like, they were talking to each other. And I do think, to a degree, Noel and Liam have been doing that with all their solo albums. But here with this one, if there's a conversation going on, that conversation is saying, hey, brother, we're not so different. We're not so different musically. Even though I made that album, that's just for fun, and that's just kind of proving my point. But that's not to say that these two albums, Come On You Know and Council Skies, don't deserve just to be their own album. They're both really strong solo albums and great in their own right. And, that's the thing is, I personally don't really care if Oasis get back together because I think we get more music this way. That's something John Lennon said in the early 70s about the Beatles. He said, hey, if people really love the Beatles, they should like that we're broken up because now they get 4 times the music. We're all releasing solo albums and you're getting a lot more music as a result. Well, we're getting more Oasis music now than we did in the 2000s. Like, literally. Like, Noel and Liam are putting out more music than they did back then. And the albums come out faster. And I actually think the quality is higher than the last 2 Oasis albums. I like those albums, but I prefer Liam's last 3 albums, and I prefer every High Flying Birds albums if we don't count those EPs. I actually think they're all better than the last 2 Oasis albums. It just seems like we're getting all this great music, and there's a lot of bands. There's bands like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue and all those bands in the 80s that are kind of living off their laurels, and they're just nostalgic acts. They're just playing old songs. And here, Liam and Noel, neither of them are a nostalgic act. Their new songs that they're recording on their own are just as strong as the songs they did in the 90s in Oasis, in my opinion. Yeah, those first 3 Oasis albums will always be my top 3 albums that these two guys did together. Like, to me, you can't touch those albums. But the work they've been doing in recent years, Noel and Liam, it's competitive. It's competitive. It's part of the legacy. It deserves to be in the legacy of those great 90s Oasis albums. These guys are still inspired. They're still making great music, and more people should be hip to that. If somebody says, "Oh, it'd be great if Oasis gets back together," I'd say they are making music. They're just doing it separately, but you're getting twice as much Oasis as a result. So fucking buy those albums. Buy those albums. Don't be a poser. Don't be just hanging on to nostalgia. It's happening right now. These guys are talented musicians and artists making music in real time now. So support them, buy their albums, see them live, support both Gallagher brothers. They're both top blokes in my book. And that's the only reason I really care if they get back together. Like I said, I'm happy with what they're doing. I think if they did get back together, it'd be a great album because, like my little Spotify imaginary album I made proves, these guys together would make a great album because they're making great albums on their own. So why wouldn't they make a great album together? But that aside, it's mainly just because I'd like to see the brothers get back together. I said this in my other video. I just like to see them get back together because I like to see the Gallaghers just embrace each other as brothers and as guys that went through all that shit, all that rock and roll star shit that they went through together in the 90s. And it'd be nice if they did it before their mom passed away. It'd be nice. That's all I'm saying. It'd be nice. So I'd like to see that happen. But regardless, they're both fucking top blokes in my book. They both made fucking top bloke albums. I give Council Skies a slight edge on Come On You Know, but in my opinion, Noel and Liam are fucking tied. That's right, I consider them tied now. Started off Noel winning, then Liam was winning, now they're tied. So we got equilibrium in the universe, and the fucking Council Sky, blue sky is shining down on us. I'm Edwin Canistracci. Cheers.